Welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. It is time for another Monday review, but this week is slightly different. I'm joined by EFL expert and football writer Gabe Sutton. You will know him as the Football Lab on Twitter. Gabe did sit and watch the Gills Oxford game at the weekend, so I thought it'd be good for all of you to not have to just listen to me rabbit on for 20 minutes. So I thought we'd get some opinions from an outsider. Myself and Gabe are going to sit down and I'm going to get the thoughts of him, pick his brains on the performance. First half, second half, Gills top three, and then moving forward, do we still need to strengthen in the final days of the transfer window? And potentially, has Gabe changed his mind on where he thinks we may finish come the end of the season if we get that far? But first things first, Gabe, thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure, Matt. How you been keeping?
I'm very well. Obviously, it helps when Gills keep winning rather than losing on Saturday. It makes the weekend a little better.
It does, yeah. Very nice start, you'd have to say.
Yeah, it's been promising. Obviously, it's only 5 games in, and I've listened to yourself on the D3, D4 podcast this weekend, and I know James says that it's a very embryonic football league table, but I suppose you tend to look at it a bit quicker when you're in the top 4 rather than the bottom 4, which is seems to be the curse of the 2 main hosts on there at the moment. But yeah, it's been a really good start. Obviously, bouncing back really well after the opening day defeat, and it's 4 unbeaten since then. It's 3 wins and a draw, so 10 points from 12 since the whole defeat. We can't moan at that, and some will, but that's up to them.
You wouldn't have seen it coming as well, because I had a look at Gills in the Blood after the whole game, and there was quite a lot of despondent reaction, shall we say. I mean, no one was questioning the effort at all, but a lot of people saying needs to do a bit more with the ball. So actually, to go up to 4th in the table after that defeat, some going really.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, it wasn't in any way that the application or the desire to work hard was being questioned in that whole game. I think it was a mixture of Hull adapted a lot quicker, I think, than maybe a lot of us thought in terms of coming down into League One, because they were on a horrendous run back end of the Championship season before and after lockdown. And I must admit, I had them down as, I think, just outside the playoffs in my preview at the start of the campaign. But aside from Friday night when they got slapped up at Fleetwood a little bit, it's been a really solid start. But then that's the curse of everyone talking about, if they kept a clean sheet, it would have been a new record since the 20s or something ridiculous, and they shit 4 in 90 minutes. But no, it's been really good to see the way we bounced back. I think we didn't get enough credit for the Wigan win from our own fan base, not maybe from outside. I think there was a few on our Facebook page were saying it was a similar situation to Bolton last season, which I couldn't have disagreed with any more. If you look at the difference between the Bolton side that we faced last term and the Wigan side that they managed to put out. And I know they was in all sorts of trouble at the time, and they bounced back since, which is great. And it looks like they've sorted themselves out in terms of an owner. But that's still a decent Wigan side, the likes of, Cal Naismith and Joe Garner and people like that, and Morgan Fox and Jamie Jones. They've all been around the block. And I thought it was a really, really good performance a week after losing. And then obviously we beaten out of sorts Blackpool. Let's not make too many other opinions on that. They've not started very well, making me look silly because I've got them in the playoffs. Shrewsbury, we weren't at our best, but we nicked a point, and I think any point on the road's decent, especially when you're not playing well. And that's always been, I was always brought up to say, if you're not playing your best, then you can get something. Then it's a really good sign. And yesterday, I thought we were spot on all over the park. And I know Oxford fans will say, they've had 31 shots and however many on target, and they've had 75, 76% ball. But you can have all the ball in the world, but you've got to use it properly. And I think they had, aside from the goal, they had 2 real what I'd call real clear-cut chances, and that's the Cameron Brannigan one where he looks like he stands on it 4 yards out. He should score first half.
Yeah.
And then Matty Taylor should do better with his header second period when he's in the middle of the 6-yard box. But I thought a lot of their stuff was edge of the box that we were blocking on the penalty spot or the edge of the 6-yard box. There's one goal line clearance, I get that, but I thought we managed the game really well, considering the age of our starting 11 as well. But obviously, let's listen to you, because obviously I want to get your opinion, because you watched it as an outsider and a neutral, and it's always easier to form a more unbiased opinion when you don't have any affiliation to either club.
Yeah, I mean, I think the scientific response to the game would be that, on expected goals. I'm sure that's a divisive concept, expected goals, but they did have lots more shots. But I think sometimes with expected goals, it's not what it doesn't take into account is what actually happens after the shot's taken. So you can have a shot from a good area, even sort of in around the 18-yard line. But if opposing teams are kind of blocking it within a yard of that shot taking place, then it's a lot less likely to score than if the opposing players don't put sort of their bodies on the line and don't sort of close down that shot quickly. And I think Gillingham did that really well. And just looking at that game, people might disagree with me on this. I didn't, although Oxford had, lots of the play and they got into some good areas. From a Gillingham perspective, I would have felt comfortable that I would have trusted the team to defend it. And yes, they were very compact, but I think that's partly a result of them having scored 2 goals in quick succession before the half-hour mark, was it? So I think they'd done the bulk of their work at a very early stage, and I think from that you earn the right to hold what you have and defend the league, and I thought you did that very well.
That's it, yeah, because I thought first half, I thought it was pretty even, the start. I thought a lot of it was middle third. And then, I wouldn't say against the run of play, but it didn't look like a goal was coming at the time. But when you've got Jordan Graham in your side who provides a little bit of quality, and I said to Boz on the Match Day Live, I think, I'm not sure if it was on air, but I said, Sean Clare's not a natural right back. I said, we've got to isolate him. If we can get Graham or Samuel, if they swap sides, if we could get one of them isolating him, with space to run in behind, then we was going to cause them a problem. And the goal came from that. I think Ogilvie done well, Connor Ogilvie, to just duck out the way of the diagonal that was coming. And as soon as Jordan got one-on-one with Sean Clare, he was only going to try and get to the byline. I think if I'm an Oxford fan, I'd say the keeper should do better.
Yeah.
It's come from a long way outside the back post, and it looks like he's almost sort of fallen over it a little bit. But you earn your luck. And then Jacob Mellis earns his luck again. We do well to turn it over, don't we? I think it's a mixture of Connor Ogilvie and Jordan Graham pressuring Sean Clare again, who tries to overplay, I think. And Jacob Mellis' first shot charged down. They defend that well, but the second part of it's really good. And I think there's never been any doubt in Mellis' ability in terms of, when he's got the ball at his feet around that area, then he's going to be a threat. We've probably not seen him enough in that area, but it's a brilliant finish.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about Mellis actually, because I think when he first signed, it was one I wasn't necessarily sure about. I think he's always been a pretty good technician below the Championship. Played under Steve Evans before at Mansfield, but what I saw from him, especially in that first half, second half to an extent, where he was kind of hassling and harrying with the rest of them, and maybe that wasn't what I would come to associate with Jacob Mellis. I've thought of him as someone who's a bit more enigmatic, but actually it seems like Steve Evans has pushed some buttons with him and got him playing. So I'm really intrigued to hear your thoughts on how Mellis has sort of settled in generally.
I think we had this chat, didn't we? I think me and you spoke about it when we signed him, because I said, did you see him as a 10? And you said, no, you probably saw him playing slightly deeper, but would we get enough of him without the ball? I've seen nothing from Jacob Mellis to suggest that he's not going to work hard. And I think maybe the fact that he's had to play with 2 youngsters predominantly for the whole season since we've lost Stuart O'Keefe and Kyle Dempsey, I think he's almost gone, right, I'll be the senior one, I'll look after you 2. And we've played it probably more of a flat 3 rather than a 2 and a 1 in front. Right, I'll coax and cajole the 2 younger ones through it. I'll take responsibility and I'll set the example. Shrewsbury last week wasn't his type of game. It was bypassing him a little bit. There was a lot of long balls, so he was probably spending too much of his time just looking above his head like a tennis umpire.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's undoubted ability at this level, and fingers crossed now at 29, something's gone off in his head that says you can't just get away with, doing as you fancy with all the ability in the world. You've still got to work hard and apply yourself correctly. And I think we've seen that, and I've seen nothing from him to suggest anything different. And I think the goal are doing good. And it'd be interesting how he reacts when maybe Carl Dempsey's fit, Scott Robertson comes back in, because suddenly then we're going to have more competition. So then we'll have to see whether Jacob wants to knuckle down and keep his place in the side, which I think he deserves to do at the moment. Maybe not so much in away games because they're slightly different. But at the same time, if he is looking after the 2 younger ones, then he's doing a job without the ball. And I've been impressed. Like I say, there's games where we've not seen enough of him with the football at his feet, but yesterday's a prime example of what he can do when he gets half the chance.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the two young lads in there as well, Eccles and Drysdale. It's kind of struck with Drysdale because you brought in Alfie Jones, I think, as a centre back from Southampton, and all of a sudden he became like one of the best holding midfield players in League One. So you wonder with Drysdale, is that pattern going to continue? Because he put in a fantastic shift yesterday, didn't he?
I think it is. I think it looks like it's going exactly the same. We've only seen him as centre midfield, and I believe we played a behind closed doors friendly between this week and last Saturday's game against Peterborough. It might have been the week before, and he played centre midfield in that game as well. So obviously, Evans has seen something in him that suggests he gives us a bit of. He's a big lump as well. He's very tall and gets about the park really well. So maybe, I think we're going to go down that route that he'll be the fourth centre back, so to speak. That's not to say he can't play there, but I'd imagine Christian Magoma would be the next one in if anything happens to Medley or Jack Tucker. And Drysdale will cover a couple of positions, and I think that's vital. I've said that all through the summer, all through the window. We're not going to have a massive squad. You need a good few players that can play one or two positions, and I think we've got that now. We've got Declan Drysdale that can do that. We've got Connor Ogilvie that can do that. So effectively, we've got 5 centre backs. If you take Jack Tucker, Zach Medley, Christian Magoma, Declan Drysdale, and Connor Ogilvie, they can all be adept at centre half. We've got 2 left backs in Ogilvie and Tom O'Connor. We've got 2 right backs in Ryan Jackson and Robbie McKenzie. Robbie McKenzie can play centre midfield as well. We've got options up top now, which is great. And weirdly, I said John Akindi would be my top scorer this season. I think he's comfortably third choice at the moment, and that's not through anything that he's done particularly wrong. I just think the likes of Dominic Samuel and Verdane Oller have been that good that John Akindi's going to have to bide his time. But he did frustrate me saying he's not done anything wrong. That's probably not quite correct. I thought we had a great opportunity against Ipswich in the week in the EFL Trophy game, and I tweeted afterwards and said he reminds me of Audley Harrison, how Audley Harrison used to box. Audley Harrison as a boxer was great if he got on the front foot and put pressure on opponents, but he'd do it and then he'd drop off and then he'd let the opponent come back into it. And I just got that feeling with John Akindi last week, unfortunately. I don't know if you've seen any footage, but he was up against a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old centre-back. And in spells, he bullied them. He won headers, he got himself in front of them and he held the ball up and he done it really well. But then he'd go for 15 minutes, he'd go missing and not compete. And you just think, you can do it all the time. But it's for one reason or another, it's just not quite clicking for John Akindi at the moment. But it's not an awful option to have from the bench at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's a striker that's played quite a lot of his football in non-league, and then he had that connection with Martin Allen at Barnet, where he scored a few goals in League Two.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose helped Lincoln to the League Two title a couple of seasons ago. But I suppose at this level, he's not necessarily proven before. But then you could say something similar about Verdane Oliver, because he's been sort of a bottom half League Two striker, I would say, for much of his career. And then he had that brilliant season at Northampton, and all of a sudden he's playing first choice at a team that's fourth in League One. So, but I think with Oliver, you know that he's going to graft for the team. And yeah, it was a really good header, wasn't it? Yeah, on Saturday.
It is, yeah, and all you can do is, they say, head it down, hit the target. He's done everything that he could from where he was positioned. It's not his fault that Simon Eastwood's made a bit of a hash of it, I think. But at the same time, Simon Eastwood redeemed himself second period, but with 2 really good saves. I think people seem to have forgotten a little bit because Oxford had all these supposed chances and everyone looks at the stats and sees 31 shots. But I think Simon Eastwood, there's a case to say he's made two of the best saves in the game. The one from Josh Eccles, when it takes a deflection, I think, through bodies and he gets it over the bar. And I didn't give him enough credit at the time for the one from Dominic Samuel when he had a chance to put us 4-1 up. It's a really good hand on it. And I said at the time, Samuel should score. But looking back on the replay, I don't think Dominic Samuel did a lot wrong. He caught it well. It was down and low and Eastwood makes a fine save. So Oxford had a lot of the ball. We know that, and they're going to do that to a lot of teams. They'll do that to teams better than Gillingham. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, we're the greatest team in League One. But yeah, you can only, like you said, we earned the right. We got 2 in front after 20, 25 minutes. Subconsciously, any team's going to sit back for a little while. We'd have said, right, let's get to half time now. Let's get in at 2-0 up. By hook or by crook, with a bit of luck, we managed to do that. And I said at half time, if we can get through the first 15 minutes, second period, we'd be absolutely fine. I follow stream went down. We're 2-1 before you know, after 48 minutes, and then it was a case of hanging on for 10, 15 minutes, and it went the other way. But again, we did it. I thought we'd done it really well.
Yeah, definitely, and I think as well, like from Oxford's point of view, like they certainly the defending for Mellis's goal, like they had two chances to clear the ball and they didn't. They were sloppy in terms of giving it away. Whereas I don't think Gillingham would have made those sorts of mistakes. I think they're absolutely, hardwired not to give their opponents a sniff in terms of the way they defended. So I think from that point of view, I think you've got to say it's a really good defensive display. And, you've got to give credit as well to Tucker and Medley. I mean, they're two very young defenders. I think it helps having the experience of Conor Oglesby on the left of that side. I mean, he's almost, in some respects, taking on the Barry Fuller role in terms of being that organiser. I think he's someone who anticipates danger and brings that bit more experience that's in Tucker.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And obviously Ryan Jackson is, he's 30 now and he's been around the block and he's played plenty of games at this level, at top end of League Two. And I don't think he's lost as captain yet, so I'll probably jinx that for next week now, but never mind. But yeah, I think he's been really good on the whole. I know he had that silly red card first game of the season, but I think he's getting better and better with games, and it's always great as a centre back, whatever level. I've played centre back at Sunday League level. It's always great if you've got a keeper behind you though that you can trust. And I think in Jack Bonham we've got one of the top three in the division.
Yeah, I mean, I think like last season, it wasn't as though he was kind of called upon all the time in the same way that Thomas Holy maybe was under Adrian Pennick, but you felt like he would make the simple saves really well, and yeah, could be a really big asset this year. But again, I didn't feel like this was, the Jack Bonham show yesterday. I felt like the defence helped him a lot as well. So if you've got a good keeper who's protected very strongly, then that bodes well, you'd have to say.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Again, it's if one's breeding confidence to the others, then their performance tends to improve, and then obviously then they breed confidence going the other way, and it's reciprocated. And I think, like you say, Jack Bonham's not made loads of what you'd call wonder saves. He's made saves that you'd expect a keeper of his calibre at this level to make. The one I think is the best one is the one where he gets, I think it's like an armpit on it, and it bounces up, and then between Drysdale and Eccles, they get it off the line. But someone tweeted yesterday and said it's an unbelievable clearance off the line. I said, yeah, but without Jack Bonham getting something on it to start with, they don't have the chance to clear it, because if he don't make any contact, that goes in the net before we've even got back on the line. So
yeah,
I don't know what your opinion is. I was talking to someone on the phone this morning, a Gills fan, and I said it's interesting that we've almost completely gone full circle from where we were last season under Steve Evans, where we were solid, we were resolute, we were probably compact and narrow defensively without the ball, and you knew we weren't going to concede loads, but we weren't going to score loads. I think our top scorer got 7, whereas this season we're playing expansive, we're playing 4-3-3. Our top scorer's on 5 already. We've scored 3 goals in 2 of our 5 league games. We've got 2 in another, and it's almost like defensively sometimes it's a little bit seat of your pants and a little bit like you're on the edge a little bit. But again, like you've said and we've said plenty of times, that comes because we've got 4 centre backs that the oldest one's 22, so that's going to happen. But I don't know what your opinion on is. Now it seems that we've gone full circle and evolved completely from last season. It's almost doing the opposite of what we were doing throughout 1920.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of the way that you defend, it didn't seem to me in that second half, it didn't strike me as a kind of an edgy the seat type thing. I think Oxford had a lot of shots, but I think it was, I just felt comfortable with the way Gillingham defended those shots and dealt with them.
So I should have said, maybe I meant as a general, sorry, I should have been more specific rather than just yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I suppose, yeah, with 2 young centre backs, there is an element of risk, and it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because you would think with Steve Evans, who's very, I think if he's, he can go on the charm offensive sometimes, Steve Evans, and I have seen him when he's in that kind of very charming mood, and you think, oh, what's it? He's very nice. But then other times when he's not happy, he will let you know about it. He's very angry, and so he has 2 sides to him. And I think sometimes with young players, do they gravitate towards more of a younger coach that has a different approach to them? but actually you've seen Jack Tucker adapt really well to Steve Evans' man management methods when you weren't quite sure how that was going to pan out. And yeah, you've got quite a few young players. You've obviously got Tucker still there from last season, and Medley on loan from Arsenal. Arsenal clearly see Gillingham as a club, despite the stylistic contrast, Arsenal clearly see Gillingham as a club where some of their young players can kind of toughen up a little bit, so that's quite encouraging. And Coventry as well, there's clearly links there, and Drysdale put in a great shift yesterday, and I like the look of Eccles as well. So there's young players there, and you just wonder, are they going to sort of adapt to the way that Steve Evans manages his players? And I think if they do that well, then you could have some very talented players there.
Yeah, totally agree. And again, like I say, I'll revert back to this phone call I had with the Gills fan this morning, and I said about we seem concerned at the time at times about the inexperience and the naivety of youth, so to speak, without the ball. But at the same time, it's refreshing, and we have to embrace perhaps the fearlessness of this youth as well. And maybe in a weird way, the fact that we've not got any crowds at the moment, so that means we've got a lot of people that have played under 23 football predominantly. Maybe it's not such a change, and it's not so alien to them playing in front of no fans at the moment. And it'd be interesting when we are allowed back in, if we are allowed back in, how these younger players adapt to it then. But at the moment, it's working for us, and maybe that's a contributing factor. That's not the only thing, I get that entirely, but maybe it's a small contributing factor to the fact that we've probably gelled a lot quicker than we envisaged.
Yeah, I guess so. I think sometimes as fans, it's kind of hard to recognise that for a young player, if you're coming into the team, that playing in front of a few thousand fans is quite a daunting experience if it's among the first few times you've done it. So maybe this has been a way of easing them in and getting used to maybe the physicality of senior football first, and then dealing with the expectation of fans is going to be a challenge for later down the line.
Exactly that, yeah. And I think maybe second half yesterday, if it had been a full house, or not a full house, but if there'd been 4,000 or 5,000 in there, it'd have been interested how we'd reacted, and they might have thrived on it. We can't tell for sure, can we? But it's certainly something that's having an effect, I think, at all levels of the game. You only have to look at the Premier League on a couple of Sundays in the last month, and there's been some absolutely ridiculous results and score lines, and that, and probably the fact that there's been no pre-season for a lot of teams as well is probably having a contribution to it as well. But back to us, second half, I think we done well after the goal, like we've already mentioned. I thought they'd come on strong, but they sort of had 10 minutes and then we settled down again. And then I think the third goal comes at a really good time for us, doesn't it? I think it was about 70th minute, and that probably flattened them a little bit. I know they kept coming, but I think after that, like you said, I felt a lot more comfortable. Obviously, you're 2 goals up again with 20 minutes to play. You'd fancy us to see it out. But yeah, there was an element of being able to relax watching the game. And thankfully, there wasn't an element of Gills relaxing, though, on the pitch. And they carried on doing their job really well, I thought. And like you say, we saw it out. We managed it really well. And I think
And it was, I'd just like to say as well, it was a good bit of work from Ryan Jackson to set up that goal from Jordan Graham, because he is 30 now, and he's always been quite an athletic right back. But once any player enters their 30s, sometimes you kind of question them. But it's good to see that he still had that athleticism to kind of beat his man. I think he did, and then get it across to Jordan Graham. So really encouraging that bit of work from him.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the build up before then, I think there's 3 or 4 really good one-touch passes. I think Dominic Samuel and Jacob Mellis are involved as well to create the space for Jackson to get on the outside of the left back. And yeah, and I think that, and like you say, the delivery's good. I've seen comments on social media that maybe Jordan Graham's missed it, but I think it's just a really controlled finish into the far corner. I know it's bounced into the floor, but I think if he lashes at it, there's a chance that it ends up over the bar. I think it's a really good goal.
Yeah, definitely. And great start for Jordan Graham as well, because he got that assist for Dane Oliver for that cross. Really skillful moment there, and obviously got the goal. So yeah, not a bad display all round from him.
Yeah, very encouraging. And a weird stat was that Jordan Graham's goal yesterday was the first time that if he scored or Dane Oliver scored, the other one hasn't set it up. Which is a good one. Yeah, and I tweeted out earlier, we've scored 9 goals in the league, and I think between the 4 of them, which is Coyle, Samuel, Oliver and Graham, 8 goals and 4 assists in the league out of the 9. So it's really promising, because like we've already mentioned, for too long we relied on Tom Eaves. And then last season we struggled. I think, like I said, 7 was the top scorer, and we didn't get enough from midfield, which meant that we had to then keep clean sheets to try and win football matches. Whereas now there's a little buffer in the sense that if you do concede one, you think that we can go and score 2 or 3 in a game at the moment. And I think it's I don't know. I wouldn't say it's the best forward line in League One. I've not seen enough other teams yet, but it's certainly up there, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say is that I thought Dominic Samuel was maybe a little bit quiet on Saturday. I mean, because he's a striker by trade, but sometimes if you're going to go with 4-3-3, then, you know, Verdane Oliver started the season very well. So, you know, is there a danger that Samuel is kind of suffering a little bit out wide when he'd probably see himself more naturally down the middle?
Yeah, it was something we thought about when he arrived. We said, would we revert to the diamond? Would we go to a flat 4-4-2 and play 2 wingers and 2 centre midfielders? But we've stuck with the 4-3-3, which I'm pleased because it's working. And you know, no player's bigger than the team, that old adage and stuff like that. But I mean, he didn't suffer against Blackpool because he scored within 4 minutes of each half. But then, Shrewsbury was a bit of a write-off. It was horrible conditions. It was windy. It wasn't a good game for anyone. It was one of them, I think, where you get out with a point and you take that and you get home as quick as you can. But yeah, I think there's a case to say yesterday that potentially he looked a bit lost. I thought he was getting the ball too deep. He was on near the halfway line too much, and it wasn't until we went 3-1 up and then there started to be more space in behind, and then he did get his chances, didn't he? The one where Eastwood's made a save, and I think there's another one where he could have played Oliver in with a little reverse ball into the left channel, and he decided to go on and shoot, and he hit it wide. But 2 goals in 3 games, if someone had offered me that after we joined, I think we'd have taken it. And like now, the Dane's up and running in the league now, Jordan's flying, and young Trey Coyle's not an option, not a bad option to have from the bench if you want to change things up. So it's all encouraging, like you say, and we're getting players back fit. I think Steve Evans said that Carl Dempsey was back on the grass, and Scott Robertson on Thursday and Fridays, I think that's Dempsey ahead of schedule. It's hard to gauge time frames at the moment. I don't know, it's just me, because we're playing so regular. It feels like, you know, we played so many games in a short space of time. It feels like it should be 3 months into the season, and we're only sort of 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Dempsey there. He kind of strikes me as a similar kind of option to Regan Charles Cook, where someone who can maybe kind of conjure something different. I mean, Charles Cook, you'd get the odd driving run, he scored the odd goals from outside the box. That sort of thing, where if the front 3 aren't thriving immediately, then maybe Dempsey could be someone can unlock a team potentially. So I guess it's quite exciting to have someone like him coming into the mix.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And I think if anyone asked me at the start of the season, said who's your top 3 signings, him and Jordan Graham were the first 2 straight away. I think the salary cap's helped. I'm not sure it's someone we could have gone and got if, you know, Sunderland or a Portsmouth or a Hull or a team like that could have spent what they wanted on him, so to speak, whereas now they're under guidelines. But at the same time, Steve Evans, Paul Scally, Tom Lawrence, the CEO, they have to sell it. They have to convince a player that to come to Kent and play and be our captain is the right thing to do. So it's not all about money, I don't think, and credit to all those that managed to get these type of player through the door. And I'm not sure regarding the drive. I don't think we'll get the driving runs from deep potentially like Regan Charles Cook, but then it's tricky to tell. We've only seen him for a game and an hour. That's it, because he only played in the Southend game and then obviously got injured against Hull. So, yeah, in terms of calibre, it's another great option to have when he is fit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the valid point you make about the salary cap, but also Dempsey has historically been kind of based up north. I think he started out at Carlisle, didn't he? Spelled Huddersfield, I think, Fleetwood. So the fact that he's happy to move to Kent and sort of plays football down there would suggest he believes in the project of the club and is happy to commit to relocating in that sense.
Did have a short spell at Peterborough, I think, and I think a certain Steve Evans was in charge at the time. So it may be. I know he didn't play under Steve a lot there. If I remember, it was under Steve Evans. So, but then, like I've said before, no disrespect, and you've already mentioned them, like Adrian Pennock, Steve Lovell. We wouldn't even be looking at these players if they were in charge. You only have to look at the market. We were shopping him for 2 summers previously, and Regan Charles Cook come out of non-league. You know, he's a decent player. Don't get me wrong. I like Regan. I thought his work ethic and the way he approached the game was really good. Brandon Hanlon, I'd have been well happy if he'd stayed.
Yeah, I mean, he signed someone signed Nash, wasn't it, from the Ninth Tier, and no disrespect back to Nash, who I'm sure is a very good player, sort of in non-league, but you want to be shopping in a higher market if you're going to.
Yeah, exactly. And now suddenly, like you say, last season we've got two in from Southampton, we've got two in from Coventry, two in from Arsenal this year. We're signing people that have played well in for Fleetwood that have been in the playoffs twice in the last 4 seasons. We're signing Dominic Samuels coming out of the Championship, who's a decent backup option at that level. And it's
Bonham even, who's goalkeeper for Bristol Rovers. I mean, he did well the year before, so things like that.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference. Yeah, and I think we've said it enough. It's for me at the moment. It's nothing. We've not achieved anything. It's promising. That'd be the word. There's promising and potential. 2 words I like to use quite a lot, and I think that sums us up at the moment.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree on that. You look like a really efficient side under Evans, and I can see you keeping a fair few. I mean, you mentioned you've got firepower and a lot to be excited about in the front three. I feel like I could see you keeping a fair few clean sheets as well.
Yeah, and I think the more the defence plays together, the better they get. The more they build understandings, and that's what we were built on last season, wasn't we? That back five didn't change a lot last year. It was Jack Bonham, it was Connor Ogilvie and Barry Fuller from the sides, and it was Max Amer and Jack Tucker in the middle, and we very rarely wavered from that, aside from the odd game. And I think we're starting to see a bit more continuity in selection now. Jack Bonham's the keeper, Connor Ogilvie, Ryan Jackson seem to be the first choice fullbacks. And it looks like Jack Tucker's the number one centre-back, and that's understandable after the campaign he had. And it looks like Zach Medley's taken his chance because Christian Magomer had to miss one a couple of weeks ago because of COVID protocol, and he's probably played his best 3 games since then. And it's great to see. And I like it because it gives us balance, because Jack's right-footed and Zek's left-footed, and it gives you natural stability. And yeah, I can't get away from them 2 words. It's promising. It's like you say, we're only 5 games in, and I think the League Cup run was decent in the sense that it allowed us to effectively extend our pre-season and experiment and rotate and give minutes to those that needed it. Most clubs used the EFL Trophy for that as well, but it won't be a great drama if we do go out. If we beat Arsenal, we get into the next round. It'd be interesting how we approach it, because we haven't got into the knockout stages since it changed from the Johnston's Paint Trophy, and there's a reason for that, because most people can't be asked. But we'll see. But at the moment, league's the bread and butter, isn't it, for most teams in that division? And 5 games in, 3 wins and only 1 defeat. I think I'd have bit your arm off if someone had said that to me. And if we can get through October, MK Dons looks winnable in the sense that they're bottom of the league, but they're still a good side. All accounts and all the reports I've seen over the weekend, they were really good, and probably unlucky to not get anything out of the Portsmouth game. But the 4 after that, I think they give us a good gauge of where we are. I think it's Sunderland, Fleetwood, Ipswich and Portsmouth, not in that order. But if we can come out of the next 5, winning a couple, maybe drawing 1, take 7 points from 15, we're going to be in and around that top 6 still going into November, and that gives you a good platform.
Yeah, I mean, remind me where you thought Gillingham would finish in. I think you were a bit higher than me, because I said 11.
I said 8, and you said 11. I think, yeah.
So as a Gills fan, would you be more optimistic about your chances this season now than you were going into the season?
I think you have to be. Yeah, I think so, because the fact that, we've beaten a Blackpool side that a lot of people are tipping to do well. We've beaten an Oxford side that got beaten in the playoff final. We've gone to Shrewsbury and picked up a point. All right, they're not playing well, they've not won a game, but we've gone there. That's the type of game we'd have lost a couple of seasons ago before Steve Evans. We've gone to a Wigan team that I think have got plenty of players that played in the Championship or have played at a decent level in League One, and we've scored 3 goals and won 3 points. I think the only one in the league where we probably not let ourselves down, that's probably the wrong word, but probably struggled to get out of second gear was the Hull game. But you have to give Hull credit. They scored early and they managed the game, and we've done that to other teams since then. And I think, like I said right at the start of the video, Hull have adjusted to this level a bit quicker than maybe a lot of people thought they would, and I think they'll have a good season. I don't want to get ahead of myself and start jinxing it, but I've said plenty of times, I don't buy into this thing that it's the strongest League One in years. I don't agree with that at all. I can't see that. I think the 4 teams that came up will all be fine, apart from maybe Northampton.
Yeah,
I don't see any of them doing like a Burton or a Luton that we've seen in recent years and going straight through into the Championship.
No.
And all the teams that came down, I think, had issues when they came down. Charlton and Wigan off the field was well documented. It's going to take them time to adjust. Hull,
it's probably a very open division as well.
That's how I'd like to describe it. But I think there's probably 8, 10, 12 teams that think if they can get themselves going, they've got a great chance of gate crashing the top 6 and maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at some of the results we've seen so far this season, like Fleetwood were second bottom before the weekend's games. They won 4-1 at home to Hull, and then Oxford are sort of in the bottom four at the moment. They won 4-1 at Accrington, who are in the top six at the moment. So, again, I'm kind of a bit cautious not to kind of read too much into the league table
Yeah,
at the moment, because I can see it being a really open division. And I mean, even Ipswich, who kind of looked like the obvious standout, they, by all accounts, were absolutely outplayed in Milton Keynes a couple of weeks ago and probably should have lost by 2 or 3.
and they started like that. They started this way last season as well, didn't they? And everyone thought they won
Yeah,
the league. So
yeah. I mean, they kind of they had something like 9 shots at Blackpool and kind of scored from very clinical, which that's a good thing. But there's question marks about whether they're going to keep that up after, as you say, what happened last season. So I think it's going to be a really open division. I mean, Pompey haven't a couple of good wins, but they haven't started as you'd have thought. Sunderland could go well. But yeah, it looks very open division. So I think for sides like yourselves, you've got every chance of
yeah,
making a push.
yeah, I think that's a fair way to sum it up at the moment. I think there's a lot of teams that you're thinking like Donny. I think have started a lot better. I know they lost to Wigan last week, but you've got to give credit to Wigan. They bounced back after a tough start, losing back-to-back games. They won 2. I know they got smashed by Crewe yesterday, and credit to them. I like Crewe.
Yeah,
The second goal's really good, really.
yeah.
But that sums Crewe up. I think you said on the podcast that sums Crewe up. That's a very Crewe goal, and it's one that if that's scored in the Premier League, Jim White's talking himself into oblivion. It's just a really good goal, and it's how David Artell's their manager.
Yeah, that's
he's had them playing that way for quite a while now, and it's good to see Mika Mandron's already up and running. He's got a couple. It's good to see Brandon Allen scoring back games for Bristol Rovers.
I'm surprised how well he's done there, actually, for Bristol Rovers, because I wasn't sure whether he would have the physicality to lean his because they only have one out-and-out striker, but actually he's done pretty well there with his running. I think he won a penalty against Northampton last week and might have scored it. And yeah, the Gas fans really, really like him. So
same yesterday as well. He won and scored a penalty yesterday.
Right,
well.
yeah.
So both goals have come from the spot, but goals is goals. You don't get extra points for smashing it in from 30 yards. Same as a penalty, it's a goal. So. Yeah. I like Brandon. I like Brandon. I was probably in the minority. I would have been more than happy for Brandon to stay. I think the way it ended was a bit weird, and maybe he got bad advice from an agent. But he's gone, and he's not our player anymore. So we move on. And I know there's been a little bit of banter and stuff flying around about Bristol Rovers has taken our best centre half and our best striker, but
you've got
I think best young player I heard was. How they described it, a couple of their fans, but I'm not sure they've signed Jack Tucker. So, but it's good fun, isn't it? If it's all done in the right nature, then it's good fun. But good luck to him. Like I say, he's not our player now, so we don't worry about him. If he does well, that's fine. If he doesn't do, the only 2 games I don't want him to do well in are at the Mem and at the Priestfield against us, and that's fine. But if he has a good season, good luck to Brandon, because he works hard, and I think I've said it plenty of times. He's got all the tools to be a very good footballer at this level. So,
yeah, definitely.
Right, one final question before I let you go. We've done the finishing position now, and we've both sort of bottled it and not really given an answer. There's only a week left now, isn't there? We've got till Friday for the transfer window. Do you think Gills need to bring in anywhere else? And if so, where?
I suppose in terms of depth in defence, you've got quite a lot of numbers. As we mentioned, there's 2 or 3 positions in the area, options in the fullback positions, and then 5 potential centre backs. Maybe 1 or 2 experienced heads. I don't think would go amiss. Someone like in the Stuart O'Keefe or Mark Byrne mould, who can kind of cut, because as much as we've praised Drysdale and Eccles for how they've started, they are still young. They're experiencing sort of senior football kind of for the first time in terms of regular games, I think. So, maybe you would want to anticipate possibly a drop in form from either of those, and then maybe bring in someone who's a bit more experienced, who can, Byrne and I think it was O'Keefe played wide in a diamond last season. So, so maybe 1 or 2 experienced heads to bring in either in defence or midfield wouldn't be a bad thing. But I think, you started really strongly, so I certainly don't think that it's time to panic. I think you've got to go into the market only for the right player, because the players on the pitch at the moment are doing well.
Yeah, and I think Steve Evans has said that all along. He's not going to bring in people just for the sake of it. He's going to bring in the right types of player, the right types of character, perhaps more importantly as well. And it's interesting you said about either midfield or defensively. So maybe we've seen Declan Drysdale now as a defensive midfielder moving forward. Then maybe there's a case we could get an experienced centre half in. There's one name that keeps coming up, that came up all through the summer, and he was in my potential targets. One I don't think he's got a club is Reece Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, he played under Evans before, didn't he, at Peterborough and I think Mansfield maybe. So, I wouldn't argue with that. He's got a bit of physicality about him. He's tall. I think he's supposed to be reasonably quick for his height and a bit of experience as well. So, yeah, I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Yeah, so I'll just obviously, again, like it's interesting to get your sort of views as an outsider looking in, because you get sort of tied up in the emotion of it a little bit too much when you're a fan. But that's been really interesting, Gabe. Like I say, it was good. I'm glad you watched it, because it's nice to get views of other people rather than, and it's people get bored of just listening to me every Monday talking. No, really appreciate you coming on as always. I love picking your brains, because your knowledge of the Football League is second to none. And, you know, along with like James and D3, D4, I think they're probably my two favourite Football League pundits. I know you lot don't like being called pundits, but what you are. You can take it, that's fine. You do it well. So, I mean, I got tagged by Quest again for the second time, so I'm taking that. That's big time.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, listen, Matt, it's been great to chat. And listen, I know it's a bit of an uncertain, on a serious note, it's quite an uncertain time for football generally, but good that Gillingham seem to be on sort of stable footing under Scally's regime. And I just want to say I hope the club can kind of pull through this uncertain time, and hopefully fans like yourself, I'm sure, are itching to get back to Priestfield. Hopefully you can do that sooner rather than later. So, yeah, just sending my best to all the Gills fans out there.
Thank you very much. Right, as always, Gills fans, you know where we are. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to myself and Gabe this evening. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, you know the drill. Please keep liking, subscribing, retweeting, sharing and doing all that. Until next time, up the Gills.